Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next hour, Hamas seeks a complete stop to the fighting in Gaza in response to the UNSC-backed three-state ceasefire proposal. Israel says this amounts to a rejection of the key elements of the peace plan. US President Joe Biden says he'll respect the jury's decision where his son Hunter has been held guilty of illegally buying a gun for which he could face a jail term. Chandrababu Naidu gets a hug from India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi after he's sworn in as southern Indian state Andhra Pradesh's Chief Minister for the fourth time. His son, along with film star Pawan Kalyan, also get births. And unbeaten India to take on co-hosts the US in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2024 on Wednesday, with an eye on the Super 8 spot. A US-endorsed and UNSC-backed proposal to reach a ceasefire in Gaza hangs in limbo as both Israel and Hamas trade blame. Israel has accused Hamas of rejecting the plan's key parts, including a proposal to release hostages, while Hamas said that its response to the plan has opened up a wide pathway for an agreement. US President Joe Biden's three-phase plan aims for a ceasefire and phased release of Israeli hostages in Gaza in exchange for Palestinian prisoners in Israel, while a permanent end to hostilities is negotiated through mediators. In the meantime, things remain hot for Israel in the north. Hezbollah has fired dozens of rockets at an Israeli military post after the group's top commander, Abu Talib, was killed in an Israeli strike on Lebanon. Now, this person is the Syria-most Hezbollah commander who's been killed in the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. However, the Israeli army is yet to issue an official statement on the strike. According to a report, 3 other Hezbollah members were also killed in that strike. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has left Jordan for Qatar as he continues his West Asian tour. The trip comes after the top US diplomat called Hamas's support for a UN resolution on a Gaza ceasefire proposal a hopeful sign. Qatar, along with Egypt, have been the main mediators in the Israel-Hamas conflict. Earlier this week, Blinken met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. Let's get you more on this. We've got DD India's Sarah Coates joining us live from Tel Aviv. Hi, Sarah. Now, the Israelis are saying Hamas has rejected key elements of the ceasefire proposal. Now, does that mean that this effort for peace in Gaza has reached a dead end?
Good afternoon. Well, this is why the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting Qatar today. We, of course, know that Qatar is one of the key mediators in this process. Hamas giving its position, but remaining strong in what it wants, and that is a full comprehensive ceasefire, an end to the war and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Now, we did hear from the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken just yesterday when he was here in Israel. He said that the Israelis do remain committed to this ceasefire plan, to this latest proposal that is on the table, but it is important to add that there's been no formal response from the Prime Minister's office as yet. But we also need to take into consideration what we've been hearing from the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the last few days. And he says that we will be sticking to our plan, and that is no end to the war until Hamas is defeated and all of our hostages are returned home. But still, in saying this, there is a lot of pressure on Netanyahu here in Israel to end this war, to bring these more than 100 people back. They've been held in Gaza now for more than 250 days, and their loved ones are extremely worried, to say the very least. So a lot of optimism, but really, rather a lot of pressure, but really not much optimism for this latest deal.
Okay. That is indeed a grim situation. Now, what's the status of the fighting itself right now in Gaza? What has been the impact of the latest Hezbollah assault also in northern Israel? Does it enhance the pressure on Israel to find the path to peace?
Well, certainly this was one of Blinken's goals, to get this ceasefire in place, to potentially see this escalation in northern Israel come to an end. It is extremely concerning and has really only been ratcheting up over the past few days. Just this morning, there were 2 separate barrages of rockets of almost 100 each time launched from southern Lebanon by Hezbollah into Israeli territory. And these are communities that are still largely evacuated. There are more than 60,000 internally displaced people here in Israel. They are unable to go home due to the dire situation in the north. And there is a lot of concern that if this gets any worse, that a full-scale regional war, which could involve Iran, could be on the cards. Now, this latest barrage, or 2 barrages of rockets that were sent over, that was in response allegedly to a number of Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon overnight, which killed a number of senior Hezbollah commanders, one of those being a very senior commander who the Israelis say was behind the majority of rocket fire since the 8th of October. So this is certainly, as I said, an extremely concerning situation, and one that the Americans really want to bring under control as soon as possible.
Well, let's see if there's any further progress on that front while the war goes on, and sometimes one also seems to feel that it's escalating as well in different parts of that region. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Sarah Coates. Now, the US military forces have destroyed 2 anti-ship cruise missile launchers in a Houthi-controlled area of Yemen. The action has stoked fears that the Israel-Hamas conflict could spread and destabilize the wider Middle East region. US Central Command said that the missile launchers presented an imminent threat to US and coalition forces and to merchant vessels transiting the region. Meanwhile, British security firm Ambry said on Wednesday that a merchant vessel has reported being struck approximately 67.7 nautical miles southwest of Yemen's Hodeidah. US President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has been convicted by a jury on Tuesday of lying about his illegal drug use to buy a gun, making him the first child of a sitting US president to be convicted of a crime. Hunter Biden faces up to 25 years in jail, but is unlikely to receive the maximum sentence, as Caroline Malone reports.
In a statement shortly after the verdict, he said he was disappointed with the outcome, but that the love and support of his family was even more important and warming to him. We heard much the same from the US president himself, Joe Biden, saying that, people have to remember he is not just the president, he's also a father, and the love of his family is more important to him. However, we also heard live from President Biden during a gun violence prevention event later on Tuesday afternoon. He addressed the need to ban assault weapons. He spoke to a crowd in a tone that was very much campaigning, which is ahead, of course, of the US presidential election later this year. He did not mention his son's verdict, that his son had been found guilty on these 3 charges. However, President Biden did change his schedule. He is headed straight for Wilmington, Delaware. He is expected to be there until Wednesday afternoon, when he's due to fly out to Europe to be present for the G7 leaders meeting. Now, during this trial itself, we heard a lot of testimony from witnesses talking about Hunter Biden's substance abuse problems, how he used and abused drugs over many years. The ultimate question was he using drugs or knew that he had been using drugs when he entered the form to say that he wasn't a drug user to buy the gun? Clearly, they found him guilty of that. But the special prosecutor, David Weiss, came out afterwards and said it isn't just about this, as a person who has an addiction, this is about his criminal act. This is about the lying that is the crucial part of why he was found guilty. We also heard from another interesting voice. That was from one of the jury members, known as jury number 10. Wasn't given his name to US media, but he spoke out earlier on Tuesday and said that there was sadness on his part for the Biden family. He thought it was especially sad that Naomi Biden, who's the daughter of Hunter Biden, was took to the stand and gave evidence about her own father and his substance abuse problems. He said it didn't help their case, it didn't hurt their case, but he didn't see it as being necessary. But clearly in the last couple of weeks, a lot of the challenges and problems and sadness of the Biden family has been aired to the public. And here we are now with this guilty verdict for Hunter Biden. We await a sentencing date. It could happen in the next few months, anything up to 120 days. During that time, July 8th, we're likely to get Donald Trump's sentencing as well. He, of course, was found guilty on 34 business falsifying claims. So we could be in a scenario when potentially both Donald Trump and the son of the president, Hunter Biden, get jail time, really, before we get to the presidential election this year. At least with Hunter Biden, though, the special prosecutor has come out to say they're not going to be going for the maximum sentence because he's a first-time offender. Hunter Biden, though, does also have another trial coming up in September where he's facing tax evasions. All of this happening, of course, just a few months before November's presidential election. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
And Joe Biden has showcased his administration's efforts to cut down on illegal gun trafficking as well, just hours after his son Hunter was convicted of lying about his drug use to illegally buy a gun. Democrats largely favor stricter gun laws to reduce deaths from gun violence across the country.
In 2 weeks, we'll mark the second anniversary of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. It's the most significant gun legislation in nearly 30 years. It was designed to reduce gun violence and save lives, and I'm so proud of the tremendous progress we made since then.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Ukraine says it has shot down all but one missile in the latest barrage of fire from Moscow, which also included 24 drones. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to join G7 leaders in Italy in his first foreign diplomatic engagement after being sworn into his office for the third straight time. And firefighting teams are battling an intense forest fire on the banks of the Twin Lakes in the US state of Colorado.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Russia launched a missile and drone attack on Kyiv early on Wednesday, damaging residences and injuring several people in the Ukrainian capital. Ukrainian military said it shot down 5 out of 6 missiles and all of 24 drones launched during Russia's overnight attack, and claimed that Russians used a combination of cruise and ballistic missiles as well as drones in its attack. The attack also resulted in power outage in the capital. Air raid alerts lasted several hours across all of Ukraine, including in regions bordering NATO member Poland. Operational Command of the Polish Armed Forces said that Polish and allied aircraft have been activated as a precaution. And as Russia commenced its second stage of drills practicing deployment of tactical nuclear weapons, its defense ministry said that Moscow's non-strategic nuclear exercises involved Iskander missiles. The drills are being conducted alongside Belarusian troops after what Moscow called threats from Western powers. The exercise includes obtaining special training ammunition for the Iskander-M operational tactical missile system equipping launch vehicles with them and covertly advancing to the designated position area for preparations for missile launches. Let's get you more on what's been happening in this particular theatre of conflict with DD India's Darshan Chandrababu joining us live from Moscow. Dasha, good afternoon. Now, what seems to have been the objective of the latest Russian assault against Kyiv, which Ukraine says has mostly been foiled?
Well, we're yet to hear for the comments on this particular attack from the Russian side, the Russian Ministry of Defense. But the typical response that we are hearing from Moscow is that all that is to achieve the goals that Russia has set in its so-called special military operation, that is to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. As we understand at the moment, the Russian authorities all say that Russia does have the strategic advantage when it comes to the battlefront in Ukraine, saying that Moscow is steadily, methodically and slowly moving forward. On Tuesday, we've heard the Russian Ministry of Defense saying that the Russian armed forces have liberated, as they call it, the villages of Artyomovka in Lugansk People's Republic, as well as Timkovka in the Kharkiv region. And interestingly, late at night on Tuesday, the Russian president held a meeting with the Minister of Defense, newly appointed Andrei Belausov, as well as the head of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov. After listening to their reports, he was also been listening and been reported about the progress in the operation by the heads of several departments, as well as their plans to continue the military activities. So all that is happening, as Russia says, it is going to increase its military spending and one way or another achieve the goals of its operation in Ukraine.
Right, but Dasha, could also this be in response to what we've seen happening in recent days in terms of how we've seen Volodymyr Zelensky looking for more investors and funds for the reconstruction of Ukraine while this conflict is on, and also the fact that more and more weapons and better weapons is what even the Western powers seem to be handing over to Kyiv.
Well, indeed, Russia has always been saying that the supply of weapons to Ukraine is only escalating the situation and making it worse for the Ukrainians themselves. The Russian position here has been that Moscow will achieve the goals that have been set by President Vladimir Putin on the 24th of February 2022, and the supplies of weapons only prolong this conflict. So the Russian understanding is that Moscow will be striking the weapons supplied to Ukraine, no matter what sort of weapons those are. At the same time, Moscow is sending a very clear message to the Western countries that the Western hotheads, as Russian officials describe it, should think twice before sending longer-range weapons to Ukraine. For that, we are seeing Russia now conducting the second stage of its tactical nuclear weapon drills with the participation of Belarus. We are also hearing that Russian naval vessels will have the drills in the port of Havana in Cuba. So all these are the responses that Moscow is providing at the moment to the militaristic statements, as Russia describes it, of the Western officials. And indeed, Moscow has said that the negotiated solution is possible, but only when the Russian position is taken into account. And that is not happening, and especially when it comes to the peace conference that is expected to be held in Switzerland, where Russia has never been invited.
All right. So another set of moves being put in place where it seems that escalation is the thrust because of the kind of response that perhaps Ukraine has been getting in Western countries and engaging with the West. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Darshan Chandrababu. Now, the French president will be holding a news conference on Wednesday as he tries to kickstart his party's Renaissance election campaign. Emmanuel Macron has said that he will not quit as leader if the far-right opposition wins the election, the parliamentary election, which he himself has called a snap poll. Now, this has been a surprising move on his part. DD India's correspondent Ross Cullen has more on this.
Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has promised to make 2 or 3 speeches or statements every week of the campaign as he tries to regain the initiative. In 2022, in the last election, his party lost more than 100 lawmakers, but he believes there is still a path open to regain a majority in Parliament. He is coming under increasing pressure from the far right, though, from the National Rally, who are led by 28-year-old Jordan Bardella. They are always quick to mobilise, they have a good campaigning infrastructure in place, and, crucially for the far right, they have momentum after their crushing victory over Emmanuel Macron's party Renaissance in the EU vote on the 9th of June. We will find out a little bit later on Wednesday exactly what Emmanuel Macron's campaign strategy is when he lays out he and his party's ambitions for these elections. Ross Cullen in France reporting for DD India.
Now, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Labour leader Keir Starmer go head-to-head in a second televised debate on Wednesday. This comes after the governing Conservatives released their election manifesto ahead of the 4th of July polls. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
Well, the war of words between the governing Conservative Party and opposition Labour, particularly about the economy and taxation, is increasingly robust. The Labour Party are accusing the Conservatives of gaslighting the country when it comes to the economy and their pledges over taxation. In the Conservative Party's manifesto launch on Tuesday, they did pledge billions of dollars in tax cuts. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak insisting that the government can allow people to keep more of their own money in their pockets rather than giving it to the government to spend. The Labour Party insist that they are unfunded, uncosted tax cuts and that the Conservatives have not set out the full detail about how exactly they would raise the money to pay for them. In turn, the Conservatives accuse the Labour Party of having a series of spending pledges that would require a series of tax rises. That is a principle that the Labour Party denies. Now, later we have the second televised head-to-head debate between Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, and Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, with polling continuing to suggest that the Conservatives trail by a wide margin Keir Starmer's Labour Party. It may well be a similar situation to what we saw the first time round, with Keir Starmer trying to play it safe and not make a major slip-up, and Rishi Sunak perhaps minded to go on the attack because he needs something in the polling to change between now and July the 4th, and change by a significant amount. Also on Wednesday, the Green Party released their...
उस निर्देश का पालन करना है। हम सब पॉलिटिकल पार्टी मिलकर के दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा लोकतंत्र भारत का संसद इसको अच्छा से चलाएं। प्रधानमंत्री जी का दूरदृष्टि विजन है, उसके हिसाब से हम अच्छा संसद का सत्र चलाएंगे, ऐसा हम उम्मीद रखते हैं।
Nirmala Sitharaman on Wednesday took charge as the Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs. Nirmala Sitharaman retains the post for the second consecutive term. She is the first woman to serve as a minister in 3 consecutive terms of the Modi government. Nirmala Sitharaman was greeted at the office in North Block by Finance Secretary Dr. T.V. Somanathan and other secretaries of the Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs. She expressed her sincere gratitude to Prime Minister Modi for giving her the opportunity to work as Union Finance as well as Corporate Affairs Minister again and to serve the country under his guidance. The day also saw Nitin Gadkari resuming the office as Minister of Road Transport and Highways alongside Ministers of State Ajay Tamta and Harsh Malhotra. Nitin Gadkari said that India will be equipped with world-class modern infrastructure at an accelerated pace under Prime Minister Modi's visionary leadership. Wednesday also saw Jyotiraditya Scindia taking charge as Minister of Development of North-Eastern Region today. Assuming the charge of office, Jyotiraditya Scindia said that it's an opportunity for him to serve the North-Eastern states.
आज मुझे प्रधानमंत्री जी के आशीर्वाद से एक मौका मिला है सेवा करने के लिए और उस सेवा भाव के साथ सुकांता जी और हम दोनों तत्पर होकर उत्तर पूर्वी राज्यों की सेवा करें.
And more ministers will be assuming charge on Wednesday. Rajnath Singh will take charge as Minister of Defence for a second term, and Annapurna Devi will take charge of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Telugu Desam Party chief N. Chandrababu Naidu was sworn in as the new Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh after his party emerged victorious in the latest assembly elections held recently. The state geared up for the elaborate swearing-in ceremony of Chandrababu Naidu as Chief Minister, which was also attended by Prime Minister Modi. During the ceremony, actor-turned-politician Pawan Kalyan, also the president of the Janasena party, took oath as the state's deputy chief minister. "20 ministers, that is other ministers, including state politicians Nara Lokesh, Chandrababu Naidu's son, and Kinchirapu Achanaidu also took oath as members of the state cabinet. And in the eastern part of India, Mohan Charan Majhi will take oath as Chief Minister of Odisha again on Wednesday. Prime Minister Modi will also be attending the swearing-in ceremony of the new state government. The four-time member of Legislative Assembly is a prominent tribal leader. Majhi was a teacher in his locality before entering into politics. He previously served as Government Deputy Chief Whip, Opposition Chief Whip and Chairperson of Public Accounts Committee. And for more on this upcoming event, let's take you across to my colleague Saubhagya Kar. Good afternoon to you, Saubhagya. Again, a significant moment in national political history because this is the first time that the BJP will be taking charge of Odisha.
Yeah, rightly, Gautam. Just now, Prime Minister reached Bhubaneswar Satwalego. Now, Amit Shah also and JP Nadda, they are reaching Bhubaneswar. This is a historic day for all BJP people there in Odisha because the first time, rightly you said, and Mohan Majhi, you said a teacher coming, rise from a small background, he could rise to the post of Chief Minister in Odisha. And also another thing, Prabhati Parida, she will be sworn in as first Deputy Chief Minister of the state. Mohan Majhi comes from the north part of Odisha. Prabhati Parida, he comes from coastal part of Odisha. And the another Deputy Chief Minister, KV Singh, though, he comes from western part of Odisha. So it is like balanced. And now, who will be the ministers? Now there is a question, who will be the ministers? Not now, there are no phone calls to any probable ministers who will be sworn in after 2 hours.
Right. And what kind of aspirations do the people of Odisha have now that the oft-talked about double engine will be working in their favour in Odisha?
Yeah, for the first time, rightly you said that there will be double engine Sarkar in Odisha. And in the morning, Mohan Majhi went to invite Nabin Patnaik for the swearing in. While coming back on the road, Mohan Majhi just asked some pedestrians what are their expectations. So like Mohan Majhi said, that the prosperity of Odisha, it will start from Keonjhar. Keonjhar is a mineral rich, the Odisha is hugely iron ore and bauxites. Odisha is having 50% stock of iron ore and bauxites. And Mohan Majhi hails from that area. So Mohan Majhi knows how the progress of Odisha will be happen and the infrastructure will play a major role. And the iron ore, bauxites, chromites, the large reserve of Odisha mines and minerals, Mohan Majhi will fully exploit these region's potential for a prosperous Odisha.
All right. Well, sustainable development is what one also would be looking at. Saubhagya Kar, thank you so much for joining us and talking about it. Let's now take a look at some of the other developments taking place in the country as well. Security forces are conducting a search operation in the Hiranagar area of Katwa in Jammu and Kashmir following a terror attack last night. A CRPF personnel was injured during the attack and he succumbed to his injuries during treatment at the district hospital in Hiranagar. One terrorist was also killed by the police. In the ongoing hearing about Delhi's water crisis, the Supreme Court asked the state government if it had filed any FIR against water tanker mafia. The court rebuked the government for being lethargic and told it that it may direct Delhi police to deal with the mafia if the government does not take any action. The court will convene the next hearing on Thursday. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Controversial goal by Qatar robs India of a historic third round qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And Pakistan finally notches its first win at the T20 World Cup 2024, defeating minnows Canada.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India. Complex issues.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's benchmark stock market indices opened Wednesday's trading session on a positive note, backed by gains in financial and IT stocks. The NSE Nifty hit a fresh record high of 23,442 after gaining 170 points, while the S&P BSE surged over 500 points as investors remained optimistic about India's economic growth under Modi 3.0. The S&P BSE Sensex rose 525 points to 76,981, while the NSE Nifty 50 gained 160 points to trade at 23,425. And now let's get you some sporting updates as well. Well, India will be taking on co-hosts United States of America in Long Island with an eye of a Super 8 spot in ICC Men's T20 World Cup on Wednesday. India will be coming into the game as runaway favourites, winning 2 back-to-back matches. Helped by the surface India have played on, their bowlers have been impeccable. Led by the peerless Jasprit Bumrah, who bagged the Player of the Match award in both the games, they bowled out Ireland for 96 before successfully defending 190 runs versus Pakistan. Meanwhile, the US national cricket team has already made a significant impact in the game's hierarchy by beating Pakistan after a super over in Dallas last Thursday. Let me now take you across to DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya, joining us from New York for more on this. Good afternoon to you, Tapas. How competitive do you think the US will be, as India will be playing the US for the first time in international cricket?
Right, so US will be coming into this particular tournament, after a lot of confidence, defeating Pakistan and winning the first game at the same time. So they are quite gung-ho, while India are, on a run. They have won 2 matches, played 2, won 2, that too against Pakistan. It was a cliffhanger, and they managed to defeat Pakistan, actually getting, the win from the mouth of defeat. So in many ways, both the teams are quite confident. USA will come in this particular match, in this particular tie, as a underdog. India are clear favorite on paper and in every way, in every possibility. But again, in T20 cricket, anything is possible, and that's something that both team management understand, that any wrong move, any wrong strategy can backfire on them, and on a particular given day, anything is possible. So in that sense, both teams will be looking to make their mark and go hard at each other, irrespective of the scenario on paper. So we will find Indian team coming hard. They will come out with their full strength. Same with United States team. They have nothing to lose. They have shown in this particular tournament that if you consider them, if you take them lightly, it will be on your, it will be detrimental for you. Pakistan found that, against them, and India will be cautious, wary of the fight that they can provide. But they have their strength, and they are a very balanced and quite consistent team in this particular tournament. So it will be interesting to see. India will have the upper hand. They are clear favorites going into this tie, but you can't rule out United States.
So all in all, quite a match to look out for this evening. Thanks, Tapas. Now, Pakistan finally notched up their first win of the T20 World Cup 2024 as they got the better of Canada by 7 wickets in New York. Pakistani bowlers proved their mettle to restrict Canada to 106 for 7 in 20 overs. Haris Rauf and Mohammad Amir took 2 wickets each. They later chased down the target in 17.3 overs. Having lost 2 games against the US and then against arch rivals India, the Babar Azam-led side needed to beat Canada to have a chance to enter the Super 8 phase. Even now, Pakistan would need other teams' results to go their way in order to advance. A chance to achieve a historic third-round qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup for Indian football was denied after it went down 1-2 in Doha on Tuesday. A controversial goal and the quality of an under-strength Qatar robbed India of a rare high after having subjected itself to repeated low points over the last few months. Post the demoralizing draw against Kuwait in what was Sunil Chhetri's last game for India last Thursday, Igor Stimak's side put in an inspired performance, but it wasn't enough, as what looked like a wrongly awarded goal hurt India late on. In the end, it didn't matter what happened in the other match between Afghanistan and Kuwait, as India couldn't live by its fate to finish second in Group A behind Qatar, and as a result will not progress any further. Erik ten Hag is set to remain as coach of Manchester United after a performance review of the Dutchman carried out by the Premier League club on Tuesday. Rumours swirled regarding the future of ten Hag after a poor second season in the hot seat at Old Trafford, with a lowly 8th placed finish in the league and Group Stage Champions League exit. But the 54-year-old coach did oversee an impressive 2-1 FA Cup final win against local rival Manchester City in May to boost his chances of keeping his job. With ten Hag's contract set to expire in Manchester next summer, negotiations over a contract extension have reportedly begun between the two parties. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app as well. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code right there on the screen and download the app now. We'll be back with more news and updates as the break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.